Hello, everyone. Dr. Victoria Scarborough here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation. So today I'm going to look at the week ahead for the month of January 2022. That will run from January 10th, I believe. Hold on, I'll make sure. January 9th to January 15th. So there's a couple things happening this week that are significant. And last week was a week of planting intentions with the new moon in Capricorn. This week, there's some action moving forward. Some of it is perhaps a little misguided. We'll see. We'll take a look. But there's a revving up of the energy. And next week is really, I think, the big week for January. Where I think everything really kind of shifts and changes. We'll look back on that week and see it as one that was very meaningful. This week is meaningful as well. This past week was meaningful as well, with the fact that January 6th fell on that first week, kind of in the same vein as that new moon in Capricorn, perhaps a new way of governing on some level. So let's take a look at. I'm going to share my screen with you here as soon as I find where I need to be. I'll be right back. Let me just pause this. Okay, guys. So I just wanted to pull up this as a, okay, here we go. So we're in the second week from January 9th, January 15th, first thing. We have that's happening is on the 9th of January, and that's the first quarter moon in Aries. This is a crisis in action moon. The actions taken are actions on the seeds planted at that new moon in Capricorn. The way the moon moves through the month, it's sort of on a much smaller scale, and then we have these larger synodic cycles that have a broader influence in a way. So now we're talking about just really this month, the energy of this month. And remember that the 13th degree of Capricorn, that was where we had the new moon. The Sabian symbol is a fire worshiper meditates on the ultimate realities of existence. The subjective quest for ultimates beyond the interplay of the life and death process says, are we ready to demonstrate man's will to transcendence? Can we overcome? Can we move forward from a higher perspective here? And I think that higher perspective is going to take an awful lot of faith for us, and also an awful lot of love on our part. Love for one another, despite what people say, despite for those people, what people they back, despite their vaccination status, I guess, or what they believe, or how much money they make, or how much money they don't make. This is going to be a real, we can really change things if we open our hearts to each other and open our hearts to Mother Earth and start connecting instead of trying to isolate and just keep putting up walls around ourselves, whether it's a wall of hatred or a wall of fear or a wall of a physical wall, a fence maybe to your neighbor, whatever it is. It's about open arms. What's my mantra? Open mind, open heart, open arms. Okay. So, and we look here, we have, this is the square here. Here's the moon at 20 degrees, 1927 actually, of Aquarius. This chart is a chart for the US, but it's an Aries rising. So this is the ascendant of the US here. But we can see the sun here in Capricorn, up in that 10th house. And so just by the positions of this, we can see on a certain level that government here needs to take action. Government needs to take action. And actually, this week we had this here in the U.S. Kamala Harris speak. We had the Justice Department speak. Merrick Garland first, then Harris, and then President Biden, and then we had all the stuff at the and in fact, in President Biden's speech, there were two Republicans, Liz Cheney and her father. And so I think that was very symbolic, because they really are sort of symbols of perhaps the real grassroots of the Republican Party in the way of, what the Republican Party stood for. And, they could be symbols of the past of the Republican, and the Republicans are sort of reinventing themselves into this fascistic and what's the word I'm looking for? Authoritarian party. So, but the story isn't told, and it's not written yet, and we get to have a voice in this. And I think it's important that we do have a voice, and it needs to be the voice of unity and not separation. Here it is again. This is the Sabian symbols for the sun at 20 degrees of Capricorn, hidden choir singing during a religious service, the fulfillment of the individual's creative function through his participation in a group performance consecrated to the transcendent realization of unity. So this is a united front taking an action. And what does that action need to be? The moon in Aries, a young girl feeding birds in winter. Keynote, overcoming crisis through compassion. That's what this first quarter moon is asking us to do, to take actions to, and for the government, for those in positions of power, to actually stop sitting back and start taking action in alignment with kind of what it is that we need at this time. So the energy is revving up to move forward, to move out, right? And the energy doesn't have a side. The energy is the energy. And so what we put out there, what we're focusing on is the thing that's going to put forward. And I think that if we keep focusing on the terrible things that are possible, we could actually start sort of bringing that in for ourselves. So let's not do that. It's good to be informed. It's good to do what you can do, know what you can do, and do it. And the rest of the time, just put it out of your mind, knowing that you did everything that you could, and live your life to the best of your ability with as much joy and love in your heart, and let that extend out into the world. We have to count our blessings before we start blaming everybody else for what we don't have. On Monday, January 10th, we have the sun making a waning sextile to Neptune. This is part of the synodic cycle between the sun and Neptune. The moon and sun have their cycles monthly. Neptune and the sun have their cycles yearly. So every year the sun comes to where Neptune is. In this case, it was at 21 degrees of Pisces. And then it goes on its merry way until it's 300 degrees away, and we have the waning sextile. This is an opportunity for progress, real progress. And when we're dealing with Neptune, which can be compassion and unconditional love and oneness, and the sun, which is about focus, this is really about a focus on oneness. This is about humanitarianism, understanding and information coming direct, having a direct connection to spirit. The sun is at 21 of Capricorn and Neptune is at 21 of Pisces. And the seed conjunction was actually at 21 degrees of Pisces. So, and that occurred, that seed was actually planted back March 10, 2021 in Pisces. And in fact, that day vibrated to the card in the tarot, the 18-9, which is the moon card, which is associated with the sign of Pisces. So the idea of Pisces, Pisces is a lot of Pisces. And we are going to have a conjunction in April between Jupiter and Neptune, not at this degree, but only a few more degrees away in Pisces. So there is this sort of energy of ramping up the Piscean energy, which can be an energy of compassion and love and caring. It also can be contagion. So we do have to be aware that things, I think this is speaking of the viruses becoming more contagious, but not necessarily more deadly. But if we want to stop it, we're going to have to vaccinate everybody. And I mean, maybe in America you can get away with not being vaccinated, but these places where there's like no vaccines at all, those are the places that need to be vaccinated. And what the drug companies are doing is that they're investing the vaccines and all that stuff in the areas that can afford it and not the areas that can't afford it. So they're making a lot of money. And at the same time, they're not getting to the root of the problem. So if you can't get to the root of the problem, these areas where, people you can't isolate from each other. You can't do that stuff. You have to live in community, and the spread, and they're not necessarily in the best situation as far as, their health and well-being because they're poor. This really has become a crisis of the poor. And of course, that's always right. And, what does Jesus teach us? Jesus teaches is what you do to the least of me, you do to me. And so I think we need to start getting very, very Christian in the best sense of the word. And I really, if ever said anything about becoming more Christian, believe me. Okay, so on January 11th, we have Mars making a last quarter square to Neptune. This is a square, right? It's Mars is action, Neptune is beliefs or compassion or love or illusion and delusion. And so it's very easy to act on your own delusions or your own story that may or may not be real and be true, but it's also an opportunity for us to sort of move our energy and imagine things, imagine a different world, imagine a better world. We can utilize that and take actions to do that, but they need to be actions that are empowering to all of us. This is a crisis in belief square, and this is part of a synodic cycle that began in 2020. So this crisis in belief square, according to the Leo King, the astrology of Leo King, Mars square Neptune transits bring low energy, suspicion, deceit, lies, and scandals. It is normal to feel weak and discouraged under this confusing influence. Guilt is also possible. And you may recall hurting someone in the past. It is important not to let such negative feelings lead to self-defeat or even self-harm. So it's a difficult time. And so we need to make sure that the actions that we take are coming from the right place. And that we understand that what you give out, you get back. And so if you want good things to come into your life, you kind of have to put good things out there. And if you want fear to come into your life, you put fearful things out there. So it's a real balance. It's not easy, folks. I'm not saying it's easy. On Friday, January 14th, we have Mercury stationing retrograde. It's happening at 11 degrees of Aquarius. And the Sabian symbol is during a silent hour, a man receives his inspiration, which may change his life. Anytime a planet goes retrograde, we really need to go into a more inner and introspective way of being in order to access that energy. And so we are accessing our own genius, Aquarius, from inside of ourselves, and our connection to higher vibrational frequencies, which also is also very Aquarian in a way. And so this is about receiving inspiration, right? From higher sources, from higher vibrational places, from places like from, the solar plexus up, the heart, that kind of energy. It says the need to rely upon inner inspiration and guidance at the start of new developments. We are, here in the United States, and I hate to just keep always bringing it back to the United States, but really as the United States goes, especially in consideration of democracy, so will the rest of the planet. We have democracy on one side and we have authoritarianism on the other. And, we have Putin is an authoritarian, and we have Xi Jinping who's an authoritarian, and we had Trump who was an authoritarian. And we can't let them usurp the power of the United States, because the United States is the largest military power in the world. And if it gets in the wrong hands, right? So we have to really take this stuff seriously and understand what's at stake. And at the same time, we have to be willing to love our enemies, like Jesus said. What is implied here is the essential value of keeping open to the descent of spirit or soul forces, especially when a new period of individual activity is about to begin. The individual should not depend mainly on outer circumstances and on tradition and a sense of external, because collectively formulated incentives. There is a creative power within, a power that can be tapped, or rather should be allowed to flow into the brain consciousness or into the hands which write or fasten materials into original forms. It refers to the overshadowing of the individual consciousness by an inner yet transcendent power. So this is really, having the power of God move through you. And that's the power of love. It opens you up. It dispels the fear. It dispels the darkness. And we have the opportunity. And this Mercury retrograde is going to be a period of time when we may have to go really deep into those places and really search our own inner selves for the answers, which is really what Mercury retrograde is all about. And here we can see, here's Mercury, here's stationing. It's in a close conjunction to Saturn. And so Saturn is not retrograde. Saturn will continue to move forward. So at the time it stations retrograde. It's as close to Saturn it's going to be for a little while before it comes back direct and goes over Saturn. And so this is a rethinking, really. This is a rethinking of the structures of how we work in a society. Aquarius, how things have to be fair for everyone. If we want to combat COVID, we're going to have to fix the system that COVID is breaking, and that is a broken healthcare system in this country. And there's this whole like rugged individualism thing that America has. If you work hard enough, you'll do it, and if you haven't done it, it's because you haven't worked hard enough. It's that like sort of super judgment that we have. And yet we don't do anything to help people rise up. We don't build community. We sort of build the opposite. We build isolation towers. We have community, but it's disparate communities, because the interconnections aren't fostered. The separation is fostered. And so it's not going to happen from the outside. It has to happen from within us. We have to be willing to go there. And there's a vulnerability that requires. It requires a vulnerability and a willingness to open your heart to things. And it's hard because, when you show compassion, sometimes people attack you. Or when you heal people attack you. So it's understandable. And what's happening in, a lot of hospitals is that we have these people who've been working night and day and night, same thing. It's like Groundhog Day for them. And now they're getting attacked for helping people. So this is not, you can't, it's time to look at who's really pulling the strings and hold them to task, really. And as we do that, we come together as people. They want to keep us separate because our power is actuated, first of all, through us, our own internal experience. And then all those personal experiences blend in a greater mind to move the evolution forward. So we have a lot of ability to steer this world in a much better direction. We just have to be aware that we can do it. And we need to open up to that. And that's going to become more and more obvious and more evident. But we have to also remember that the people who pull the strings already know this. And so they will try to keep us from being self-actualized. So the best revenge here is self-actualization, I think. All right, and this whole thing, all this Sabian symbol stuff, of course, is from the book Sabian Symbols by Dane Rudger. I don't think I've ever actually put that up. So, all right, let me stop the share here. Okay, so going to be an interesting week. I hope. I wish you peace through it, and yeah, one of the thing I heard recently, which I thought was fabulous, and I can't remember who said it. It might have been an astrologer on Astrology Hub, and I think it was a woman. It could have been a guy. I'm sorry, and they said faith is a muscle. Faith is a muscle, and we're going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting. So we're going to have a lot of faith, and a lot of an ability to see the bright side of things, even when things seem dark. And sometimes the only bright is within your own heart and in a connection of love that you have with a single person or with a pet or whatever it is that brings out love in your heart. You need to expand it. You need to have compassion and you need to connect with one another. Despite COVID, despite masks, despite politics, despite it all. Just love one another, guys. Love one another. Okay, I'll see you next week for the third week of January. That promises to be like, woo! But we'll talk about it next week. Okay, guys. Namaste.